your loved one is enrolled in a rehabilitation facility in Massachusetts, or you are considering rehabilitation for your loved one with intellectual disabilities and/or autism, please consider joining the Rehabilitation Families in Massachusetts Facebook group. Thank you. Hi, I'm Irene Tanzman, the author of Abie and Arlene's Autism War. And today I have a special treat for all of our viewers. I have Michelle Babitz here from the Journey to the Soul of Autism. She has a channel on Facebook that's one of the channels that I think that if my viewers like my channel, that they would also like her channel and vice versa. Welcome, Michelle. I'm so glad that we're able to do this joint video.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for inviting me to this interview and this chat. I really appreciate you very much. I love the work that you're doing and the video blogs that you do. I know that you're doing so much good in the world for our community, and this is a very, very important time for us to really get out there and do whatever we can to help our family and our support people.
Could you tell our viewers a little bit about the Journey to the Soul of Autism and a little bit about your background, because your background's a little different from mine.
Correct. So I actually have a background as an autism teacher. I mean, my background in autism for over 40 years now. I was blessed. I learned about autism when I was in high school back in the 1970s, believe it or not. I did a little reading of the Little Red Hen in sign language to a little group of autistic children at a school that had been started by parents. And so this was back when, you know, nobody knew what autism was, and it was 1 in 10,000. And I just knew the moment I walked in the room, this was my life. This was, I was so turned on by the energy, the vibe, the rhythm. And I just knew that I wanted to work with these kids. And so my journey began over 40 years ago. I was able to start working at that school on weekends and then summers. I ended up running their group home for many, many years. And so I worked in a private school in New Jersey, and then I worked at a private school in Newtonville, Massachusetts. And those two schools were really important in my personal and professional development in working with people with autism. Back in the 70s and 80s, you had a variety of different schools of thought. Some of them were a little bit more aversive in nature, and some were very therapeutic in nature. And I'm grateful that I worked in schools that really taught me the therapeutic nature of working with people on the spectrum. I then moved to California, and I worked in the public school system there for 20 years. And about 3 years ago, I decided that I just was not comfortable anymore, you know, representing school districts. I really felt a desire to become more of a parent advocate in my own way. And so I left teaching in 2017. And since then, we wrote a book on autism. My partner and I wrote a book on autism, I Am David, A Journey to the Soul of Autism. And our goal is to create a series, A Journey to the Soul of Autism. And we are now in the process of writing a play on autism, and we're going to write more books on autism. Our next book will probably be I Am Teacher, A Journey to the Soul of Autism. Then we're looking at I Am Parent, I Am Sibling, I Am, and the whole objective of our writing and our journey with our Facebook page is to rethink how we look at autism from an educational point of view, a personal point of view, and how we can support families. The book is a series of case studies, and all of our books will just be stories and case studies. I don't like the word case studies, I like the word stories. Each chapter is a story of one of the students that I worked with, and the play will be somewhat of the same.
Well, that sounds very nice, and you're a fellow author. Yeah, written 2 novels, and I have one that's I'm working to get published, which is a historical fiction on how the Bettelheim philosophy affected one couple, one young
Really?
couple. I finished writing it. I'm now looking for a literary agent. So that's going to be a long journey for me. I thought we would talk a little bit today about progress, about what one of the things that families are very concerned about when their child is first diagnosed, and even throughout the years, is, well, what can I expect from my child? What is the prognosis? And I want to tell you something. On social media, on Twitter, somebody wrote a tweet that and he said, well, that people with autism get worse as they get older. This was a parent of a young kid. They get worse as they get older. When they're adults, they're really bad, and of course, Twitter, people don't really explain themselves on Twitter. I think that a lot of times people just talk over each other and they're not really catching what the person is actually saying. But it seemed to me that there were a lot of folks there who thought that, if a child does not make progress, that then there's nothing that can be done. That you don't blame the professionals. You don't blame the program, because they're at the mercy of what's going on in the brain. And I disagree with that. I don't think that anybody who has a neurotypical child would ever say, well, you know what, my kid didn't make any progress in school this year, and I just, the teacher's great. I just don't think he's that smart, so that's okay. You don't hear that from parents of neurotypical kids. So I really wanted to hear what my opinion is, sort of after seeing this, seeing the progression over years, and the people really knocked me down when I said this. Time plus intervention will equal progress. Some progress less, some progress more, but pretty much everybody progresses. There might be some that don't progress, but there's probably something else going on. But from the kids that grew up with my son, and they're all now in their 30s, some of them did a lot better than others, like a lot better than others. Some of them made only a little progress, but everybody made progress. So there were some that had regressive autism in the beginning, where around 15 to 30 months that they lost skills. And there are a few who had like really bad seizures, and then they lost some skills from that. But pretty much everybody progressed. Everybody who got decent intervention progressed. Now, some of them were in programs that were bad matches, and for years they didn't progress. That happened to my son. But overall, everybody that I knew progressed. I didn't see anybody who, if they had intervention, anything decent, anything, it didn't even have to be that great, they all progressed. Now, I don't know whether I know a representative sample of the population, but that's my experience. What is your experience? What do you think?
Well, the experience, as from the teacher's point of view or a professional point of view, is exactly the same. There are people that I've worked with over the years that you saw different levels of progression. So so that's true. Did you want me to kind of comment on my perspective as to why?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to hear it. So would the viewers.
So basically, I mean, I don't know how much time we have, but I'm only kidding. So that's a very loaded question. That's a very loaded conversation for me. Um, my first 20 years were in private schools. And like I said, I was very lucky to work in schools that really taught me phenomenal philosophies and phenomenal skills. Then I worked 20 years in the public system, and I was pretty much mortified more often than not from what I saw. Um, but my whole belief system and my experience in these 40 years has taught me to believe that we're kind of missing the point when it comes to education. So our kids, yeah, your neurotypical kids, or now the word is neurodiverse students. So, but let's say your neurotypical kids are working in a system and a curriculum that's established by entities hired by the school districts or the states, or I don't know how that works really. But I do know that we were told that we had to follow whatever the curriculum was that was being brought down by the state, right, in the public system. Private schools have a little bit more flexibility, but in the public system, we have to follow these curriculums. And there were times that, I mean, they just didn't make sense.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
I mean, there was one period in the beginning of core curriculum in California where our school district had to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on books that our kids would never use, but they had to be in the classroom, right? Just things like that. So the simple answer that I will give, but this is like, to me, a very lengthy dialogue. I actually think this is something that we need to start doing conventions on. We need to really rethink how we're educating our students. And our students and the families need to be participants in the development of whatever the curriculum or program or IEP or document or academic structure is being implemented. It shouldn't be something that just comes from some entity that we don't even know where it's coming from, and we're supposed to implement it because it's the law, right? COVID has taught us something that I think is really profound. All of these families, within a 48-hour period, were in a position where they had to start homeschooling their kids, teaching their children what was being taught in school by credentialed teachers, right? So that the whole system is completely breaking down, and so many of our children are losing out, and so many of our families are in very, very difficult situations right now. So moving out of COVID, my hope, my goal, my mission is to rethink how we do education. The person with autism has got to be a participant in their curriculum development. And I don't care how extreme on this spectrum that person is. It's not that they need to talk to us and tell us what ideas about what would work for them. We need to pay attention to every element of that child's personality, every sound, every rhythm, every movement, every passion, every obsession, and use that information as their communication to us, how we can better help them become their authentic self. We put these kids into classrooms and make them sit in chairs and at desks doing things that make no sense to them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right? And if we create a curriculum around that person's personality, it's more work on the teacher's part, it's more work on the school's part. And a lot of, like, the school in Massachusetts that I worked at was the best school I ever worked at. They were phenomenal. And that's what they taught me. And that's what works. When you recognize, respect, and create based on that person's passions, it's going to be a win-win. And I'll end with this. And this is not about me patting my own back or, woohoo me. No, not at all. It's whenever I worked with a student, I always saw myself as the student and my student as the teacher. It was my job to learn from my student what I needed to do to help them. And when I came from that point of view, I would say 90-something% of the time, my kids or my adults that I worked with progressed. Sometimes it could take years. But if you maintain the belief and the vision and you keep consistent, you're going, I believe unconditionally, we will see positive developmental changes, not with our kids having to fit into our box, but positive changes in allowing those people to evolve into their authentic self. And there's
well, of course, when you're talking about when they're learning stuff that they want, that they need to learn in order to get what they want, then of course the motivation is there. You know,
exactly.
There was a recent study in the Journal of American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, and the Disability Scoop reported on this with this research study that showed that children with autism, their IQ increased as time went on, and IQ is really expected to be the same. In the neurotypical population, it's the same as you go on. I'm thinking that what happened is that you're getting people to comply with the test. Maybe they have more motivation to take the test. But, you know, I just think that's sort of an interesting, a little interesting fact while we're talking about progress and the progress the person is going to make. And I think that you're zeroing in on a very good point, which is progress, yes, but progress in terms of what this person needs to know in order to function in society, not what somebody in an office way up there decides that this kid's got to learn. So yeah, I agree with you. This is one of the reasons why I think that your viewers might enjoy my channel, and my viewers might enjoy your channel. I come from more of a behavioral standpoint, but it's sort of like converges when we think about generally how we both think about these things.
And
so,
it's not that I'm not. It's not that I'm not as supportive of behavioral techniques. I used them my entire career. The tool is great. It's the mindset and how we use the tool that can make the difference.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. The other thing that I just wanted to mention, because we're talking about progress, because there are a lot of kids, and my son was like this when he was a little kid. His autism was so severe that everything was sort of like inward, that you couldn't really break through. And, you know, nowadays we know we have a better idea of what to do in order to do this. It takes a lot. It takes a lot for those little baby steps to occur. But this idea that, oh, you know, when they get older, they're going to get worse.
No, that's not
that
true.
Doesn't really happen. And the other thing that, you know, there's no research on this, about what I'm about to say. But I'm in a sport group. There's about 8 people in there, mostly women. And all of them, we all have kids that are around 30 years old, some 28, some 32, you know, around that age. And everybody's saying that my kid, my adult, when he turned around 30, he became more receptive to learning, you know, and this happened with my son. Of course, there's not a big push in adult services to get the person to progress, although there are people who work who feel that way, who are working in direct care. There are people who feel that way, that they want to get the person to progress. There are things that Isaac learned in adult services that he didn't, he couldn't learn in children's services. One is, he's more receptive to it. The other thing, which is actually unusual, the program he's in now, his group home, there are people there who started in that group home with him, staff that started with him. So they've been there for over 10 years, and they know him like a book. They know how to do it. They know how to do it. If you know how to do it, I think you got to expect progress.
Yeah.
So that's basically what I wanted to say. Oh yeah, this was another point I wanted to make. Azrin and Fox. Are you familiar with the Azrin and Fox toilet training? Well, they had a best-selling book called Toilet Training in One Day, which was for the neurotypical population, and it was a best-selling book. But originally, Azrin and Fox started in with that. I don't even know if they're still around, but years ago, when my son was little, we toilet trained him using the Azrin and Fox method. Azrin and Fox went into an institution and toilet trained middle-aged people.
Wow.
And these were people that they thought, the professionals thought, oh, they can't learn anything, they can't do anything. And they went in there and they did that.
Wow.
It's really a matter of the right intervention, and in terms of, they say, oh, well, you're blaming the teacher, you're blaming if it's not working, it's not working,
Exactly. And I will say, from a teacher's point of view, we shouldn't blame the teachers, but the teachers, in my opinion, need to stop saying, I've tried everything. I've tried everything, nothing works. I would hear that all the time. No. There's an answer. There's an answer, and the answer will come from our kids. You didn't try everything. So I understand that we shouldn't blame teachers. We need to come together as a team, but everybody needs to have a shift in thought process as we move forward, in my opinion.
Well, I agree. Thank you so much for doing this with me. I think this is going to make a very interesting video, and I hope that both your viewers and my viewers enjoy it.
I would like to end on one note if you have just a few more minutes.
Absolutely.
In terms of, like you were talking about progress or IQs and things like that. What I did, and what we did as a team in my classrooms, because in my classrooms or my group homes, because I used to run group homes, we were always a team. Nobody was better than the other. Some of us just came with different tools. So for example, the way that we can create a functional education, in my opinion, is if your son, let's say, had an obsession with belts, right? And he just loved belts. You create all your academic structures around belts. You teach math with belts. You teach reading with belts. A lot of our kids are obsessed with videos or movies or video games.
Disney.
Disney. So how do you teach reading? Our kids, they're so overwhelmed and they don't understand why we think what we're making them do is important to them, if that makes sense.
Right.
But if we take their favorite movie that they love to watch over and over and over again and create their entire academic program around that versus looking at, oh, they have to stop doing that. No, you write down the stories and you teach reading by having them read the story. You teach, you teach math, you teach writing. Don't have them write random words that they don't care about. But if you have them write the name of their favorite character in that movie, they're going to buy into writing. Then you teach them the letters. You don't start with ABC, Ariel, A-R-I-E-L.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
My closing thought is, it takes a little bit more effort, but it's an effort that we invest in the future of our kids to, I believe, not just create a better world for our kids and our families, but the world at large. And so use their passions and their obsessions and their likes as a vehicle for teaching. That's what I would like to close on. Thank you.
Okay, great. Michelle Babitz from the Journey to the Soul of Autism. Check her out on Facebook. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.
And we'll see you on the next video.